Okay, hi guys. Welcome to the Kick the Sidekick Spiritual Attachment Seminar. This is Sarah, and welcome. Thank you guys for joining me. I know it's a nice afternoon outside, at least it is where I live, so I really appreciate you guys making the time to attend the class today. Let's get started. In today's seminar, I'm going to cover a topic on which entire textbooks have been written. One of the best textbooks on this is called Spirit Releasement Therapy, a technique manual. It's like 200 or 300 pages. It's very detailed. It's written by somebody who did a doctoral thesis on the topic of spirit attachments, and it is from a psychological standpoint. So if you want more information on this topic in a written format, that book is great. Spirit Releasement Therapy. It's an entire textbook, and I'm going to cover material that's presented in that textbook within a 90-minute time frame. So because of that, that means I can't cover everything that exists and all the different permutations and all the different exceptions of how things work. So I'm going to be covering most common scenarios, the most common ways, things, situations that you will encounter, but I obviously won't be covering all the exceptions, all the permutations, all the, well, what if this and what if that, like what if that didn't work and what if this, but I'm going to do my best to try and cover as many things as possible. So going forward here, it's more than likely that you will encounter a scenario that does not match exactly what I state in the seminar or what is said in any textbook. So you listen to the seminar, you are prepared for dealing with attachments, and then something happens. You either are removing attachments for yourself or you're doing it for somebody else, and you encounter a situation that's outside the box, okay? And it deviates from the techniques that I've laid out. It deviates from the things that I've told you about or anyone else has told you about, and that's going to happen. We're dealing with people here. Attachment spirits are people who are living, and they're real people, and those, they can't be defined by any group of characteristics, right? Like we have common things that we know to deal with and the most common scenarios, but there's always going to be deviations from the normal. There's always going to be exceptions to the rule. So I'm going to be sharing with you my experiences and knowledge on this topic, given what I've seen in years of doing this and read about and learned about and educated myself on, but I'm not all knowing. And new things happen to me every day, and new things are going to happen to you every day. And as new things do happen, it's like a learning experience. So if something does happen that's out of the norm, it doesn't mean that that's not supposed to happen, or that, I was wrong or you were wrong or someone was wrong there. It just means that that's a new experience for your soul, for my soul, for whoever, and you have the ability to deal with that given what you know and given what you're going to learn here. So just know that you will likely encounter scenarios that do deviate from this in some way or another. The seminar is like a Cliff Notes version of attachments. I'm going to share with you the most common scenarios, reasons for things, the standard way that I use to remove them and heal them. And like I said, there may come a time when you have to think outside the box, act outside a given recipe, and improvise. And it is okay to improvise. I want to emphasize that. A lot of spiritual teachers will tell you don't ever talk to attachments, don't ever deal with the middle world, don't ever deal with dark spirits, don't ever get involved with that. Don't feel like you're breaking a rule and you can't do this, okay? Like that's one of the biggest things that attachment spirits and darker, lower energies prey upon, the idea that you're powerless and the idea that you can't do anything for it and that you can't do anything about it, okay? So always listen to your guides. Always know that you can stand up for yourself. Always know that you have the power to do something about it, even if you haven't read about it or that you aren't able to Google up a recipe on it or it wasn't defined in my class, okay? Like listen to what your intuition is telling you to do and know that that comes first and foremost above anything that I say or anything that any other spiritual teacher says, okay? That's like the biggest takeaway message here is that you have the power to deal with this. Don't ever forget that, and know that if you should ever feel like you're losing power and you don't have control, that's a window in which these spirits can act and take advantage of you. So always know that you're in control, that you have the power, that you can handle it, and that you can act outside of a given recipe and make up your own way. You can make up your own creation, and know that when you're making something up, when you feel like you're making it up or doing your own thing, then that's your spirit guide showing you how to do stuff and showing you how to act, and you're not just, crazy or just guessing as you go. It's your intuition telling you. So that's my spiel on that. Now, for the rest of this class, I know that we have varying levels of experience with us on the call and listening later. So I am going to refer to anyone who has the attachment as the client, okay? The client could be you, like you could be your own client, or it could be somebody else, because I know there's people on this call that have attachments, have dealt with attachments, want to know how to deal with attachments should they ever get them in the future for their own personal use, and there's people on the call who want to know how to deal with this in a clinical, like practice type setting where they want to go out and practice and have this skill and know how to help other people deal with it. So it could be you, it could be somebody else. I'm just going to refer to that person as the client. It's just the focal point of if you're looking at your own spirit or somebody else's spirit. And I will talk about how to make that switch between you and somebody else when we get to talking into how to remove them. And I'll let you know how I do that and how to make the difference between if you're removing it for yourself or if you're removing it for somebody else. So that's that. Let's start talking about attachment spirits. So if you guys are taking this class, you probably already have some awareness of what attachment spirits are, but just to set the stage, I will give you a brief definition. So attachment spirits are a type of earthbound spirit. Earthbound spirit is an individual who died. Their physical body is no longer functioning, their spirit left their body, and they did not cross over for whatever reason. There's many reasons why earthbound spirits don't cross over. Now, earthbound spirits can then be broken up into two different things, and earthbound spirits get their energy in two general ways. They use the residual energy from the environment, or they use the energy of a living human in order to get their energy. So when a spirit dies and they become earthbound, they no longer have an energy source that they can easily access, okay? So humans, living humans, get their energy from divine source energy, food, water, nutrients that we consume, sunlight, that sort of thing. When an earthbound spirit stays earthbound and doesn't cross over, that means they didn't go into the light, so they're no longer connected to the light for their energy, and they're also no longer consuming food or water, so they can't get their energy that way. So in order to still exist as a spirit, to still move about the spiritual world, they need energy in order to do that. Now, some earthbound spirits choose to garner energy from the physical environment using residual human energy or residual like electrical energy, power plants, electrical storms, that sort of thing. But when an earthbound spirit decides to draw their energy from a human, a living human, then they become what's called an attachment, okay? So an attachment is just this particular class of earthbound spirit, and it's a type of earthbound spirit that chooses to draw their energy from a living human, okay? And there are many reasons why an attachment spirit does this. Now, when we say attachment spirits, it can kind of sound like an entity or like a non-human thing or some darker demonic force. And, sometimes that's the case. Like sometimes there are demons and darker entities that are non-human that can be attached. But most of the time, it's important for us to remember that these guys are humans. They are human individuals who have had families, who have been alive once, who have had people who love them once, and that's the best thing that we can remember when we're dealing with these, because when we can connect to them on a human level and show them compassion and get in a communication with them on a human level, those are the best tools that we have in dealing with attachment spirits. Instead of teaching them like an entity that needs to be banished with sage and like an object, if we can connect to these spirits on a human level, that's the best tool that we have in dealing with them and getting them to cross over and getting them to unattach from our energy and to learn what they're doing and to understand that the harm that they're causing is to acknowledge that attachment spirits are human. They are, moms, sisters, daughters, fathers, husbands, brothers, cousins. They are people who have been loved or have not been loved, and they have feelings, okay? Now, what tends to happen is these attachment spirits, they have many reasons for why they attach to people, okay? So one of the biggest reasons that they do attach to a living human is to get energy, like we talked about, okay? So They need to get energy to continue doing whatever it is that they wanted to do, which is the reason that they didn't cross over, right? So spirits don't cross over for a particular reason. In order to continue doing whatever that thing is that they wanted to do, they need to have energy to move about the spirit world. So the number one reason an attachment spirit attaches is just because they need energy and they don't know of another way to do it. And they probably saw once they crossed over, or once they died, not crossed over, probably they may have seen another spirit being attached, and they were like, oh, this is what we do now. We attach to other people, and this is what we do. So just getting energy, just like the non-malicious purpose of getting energy, that's one reason why they attach. Another reason is they want to perpetuate a human vice, a human need that they had, some human thing that they want to keep doing. They can perpetuate that behavior through the host, if you will, through the client. So an addiction, a drug dependence, a vice of some kind, a thing that they wanted to do, an agenda they wanted to accomplish before they crossed over. They see attaching to a human as basically like a puppet show and can use that human to perpetuate whatever it is that they wanted to do as a spirit when they crossed over. Whatever human thing that they had going on with themselves as the reason that they didn't cross over, they see a living human as the avenue through which they can perpetuate that problem. So that's one other big reason why they attach. And the third reason, which is rarer, is to legitimately be malicious and to be a bully and to be mean and to harmfully and intentionally manipulate the behavior of somebody in a way that is negative or mean or non-beneficial or detrimental in some way. Now, this is rare that this happens, that a spirit will do this with the intention of being malicious, but it does happen. There are bullies in the human world, there are bullies in the spirit world. There are nasty people who die and stay nasty as spirits until they cross over. So it's important to recognize that while most of these attachment spirits are kind of confused and don't know what they're doing, and if they understood it would cross over, in very rare cases they are kind of nasty. All right? And they're a little more difficult to cross over, if you will. And it takes a little more time to kind of humanize and like be compassionate with them and pull away the layers and soften them and talk to them and kind of talk them off the ledge and get them to unattach. So that's the basic definition of attachment spirits, okay? So they're a type of earthbound spirit that attach to humans for a number of reasons. The biggest three reasons are to get energy, to perpetuate some human problem, and to be malicious, intentionally malicious, and control another person's behavior and or to cause harm intentionally. Okay, so there are various levels of attachment. There are two big ways that attachment spirits do attach to people. The one is less common and one is more common. And I like to call them two different levels of attachment because there are two different like depths through which they can attach to our energy and to our spirit. Now, the first level of attachment is the one that's less common and is like a deeper form of attachment. And this is what's known as possession. And this is when attachment spirit like fully steps inside and fully comes inside of the body of a living human. Okay, so this is why attachment removal is often called depossession, because you are pulling the spirit out and depossessing the human body. This is not as common, and what this is a spirit will take advantage of a scenario in which a human is less present in their physical body, okay? So what I mean by this is that many of you know this, I'm sure, but I'll just do a quick reminder of this, is that we as humans have a physical body that we exist in right now. And within that physical body, we have our human spirit. This is the spirit. This is the soul. These are our thoughts, feelings, emotions, personalities, soul history, behaviors, knowledge, information, all the intangibles that make up who we are. This is our spirit, okay? And this spirit lives inside of us most of the time. Now, there are times throughout life and through other people's lives when the spirit can dissociate from the human body, when our spirit can separate from the human body, okay? And the way that why our spirit separates depends on the person, but it can be when we experience particularly intense traumas, when we are going through deep depressions or periods of like intense physical or emotional pain. Our spirit will separate from our physical body as a means of protection so that we don't feel as much pain or feel as deeply, okay? So what can happen is some people, when they go through certain periods of their life, is their spirit is less present in their physical body, which leaves an opening for, an overzealous other spirit to step in, okay? And this doesn't mean that they fully step in and fully take over, although this can happen, but it's extremely rare. What tends to happen more is that the person who owns the body, their spirit will kind of come and go and be more present or less present. And during those times of less present, the attachment who is possessing that body can become more pronounced, okay? So it's this possession spirit can kind of take more control when the person who has the body, when their spirit is leaving or is taking more of a separation period or is feeling more distant. Now, you may know somebody like this who feels kind of spacey and distant and not all there, or they're deeply depressed, or they have some trauma, and you just don't feel as though they're connected to their spirit anymore. This is common in cases of like addiction or dependence in some way, where the individual is experiencing so much emotional pain, physical pain, that their spirit just separates. And then in those windows of separation is when the attachment spirit can come in and possess that individual, okay? Now, it's common, like I said, in older people who are experiencing intense traumas, and it's also can happen with children. More readily than it can with adults. And the reason for this is because children, their spirits tend to come and go more frequently than adults. And the reason I say this is because kids, when they incarnate onto this earth, their spirit comes into their physical body as a baby, okay? And when their spirit comes into their physical body as a baby, it's there, but it's also used to kind of moving freely about the spirit world, okay? Like a lot of children will astral travel in their sleep, and a lot of children, I talked about this in my psychic, parenting a psychic kids class, children are just very in tune with their spirit, but this also means that their spirit can come and go, and if that child tends to be in an environment that's not spiritually protected or tends to be particularly low energy, we'll talk about this later, then what can happen is during the times that that child's spirit is traveling, if you will, around the spirit world, then an attachment spirit can come in and possess a child. So that's the first level of attachment. It's not as common. It's like pretty uncommon that this would happen because it requires almost like the perfect storm of events where an individual spirit is kind of separated, and at that exact moment they come in contact or are around a particularly strong spirit who has the power and no wherewithal to know how to step into a human body. So it's like it requires almost like a perfect storm of events, and it's just not that common, but it does happen. Okay. It also is, I don't want to say it's not that common because it is not that common, but in people with like drug addiction and alcohol dependency and drug dependency, this type of attachment, the possession, tends to be a lot more common because their spirit is more and more separated. So the more and more somebody gets down the rabbit hole of trauma, depression, being separated from their body, the more and more likely it is that they have been possessed by a spirit, okay? So that's the first level of attachment, possession, which means the spirit is fully inside. Now, the second level of attachment is exterior attachment, and this is extremely common, and this is when the attachment spirit is connected to you and your spirit and your energy through a cord of energy, okay? So a cord is just a stream of light, a stream of energy that connects two individuals, all right? So it is a connection of energy between you and somebody else. And you can have a cord between somebody who's living, but you can also have a cord between you and somebody who's dead. So a client, you, whoever has the attachment can have cords to people who are living and can have cords to people who are deceased, all right? Now, a cord to people who are deceased doesn't necessarily mean that they're attached to you, because, like, let's say you have a parent that dies and you can have a cord of attachment to a deceased parent, but that doesn't make them an attachment, right? So what makes an attachment through a cord is if that attachment is attached to you and has a giant, and has connected a cord to you with the intention of sapping your energy, like intentionally, okay? The way that I see this is basically they shoot out their energy to you, latch on to your energy field, and then they kind of trail behind you. And they tend to hang out behind you so you can't see them. And they tend to connect to your back, your solar plexus chakra. Those are the biggest areas that they attach. The solar plexus chakra is very common. Your heart chakra, the top of your neck, they tend to attach to areas behind you almost always, and they attach in ways that you can't see them, and they just kind of shoot out their energy towards you and like latch on. Like, if you guys are familiar with those things that kids play with, those sticky hands that you would get like in vending machines, where you throw out a sticky hand and slap it on something, that's basically what an attachment does, is they like throw out a cord of their energy as you're walking by, and they smack it on the client or the individual to whom they want to attach, and boom, they're stuck on until they decide to de-stick themselves or the client finds out they're there and removes them. So that's the other level of attachment. Now, where they attach is based on where they spot a weakness in your energy or the client's energy, okay? So all of us experience low energy emotions. All of us have an energy field, right? And our energy field can become damaged, and it can get holes in it, and there can be spots of weakness in the energy field. And this doesn't necessarily have to be our own fault. It can be because somebody else was lodging insults at us, or we were just going about our day and coming in contact with a lot of external negative energy that was kind of eating away and creating holes in our energy field, right? So what can happen is anytime that an attachment spots a hole in an energy field, this hole is a space to which they can attach. It's just a weakness in the energy. It's like there's like an entry point that they see to your energy, and that is the moment in which, and the time in which, and the place in which they attach, is where they spot a weakness in your energy. Okay? And because we all experience low energy emotions, and we all encounter low energy emotions, and I mean like sadness, anger, anxiety, worry, depression, any irritability, anything that we come in contact with that's like a negative emotion has the potential to create this lower energy. And the way that I see this in an energy field is as a dark spot on the energy field, and a dark spot that creates an indentation, if you will. So because we all experience these things, because we're human, that's why attachment spirits are so common, okay? Is because there's so many earthbound spirits that need energy, and there's so many living humans that are in a state of low energy or have places of low energy that it kind of creates the scenario in which there is a demand and there is a supply, if you will. So there's a demand of spirits who are needing energy, and there is a bunch of living humans that have these low energy spots in them. And it isn't anything that the individual has done wrong that creates a spot of low energy, just like the right place at the right time, if you will. So it's not that it's anyone's fault that there was an attachment. Guys, I'm going to be honest with you. I've had attachments, okay? Like, I've had attachments. My husband has had attachments. My sister has had attachments. Yes, it's taboo in the spiritual community, but every single person that's living, it's my belief, has had an attachment. And it's usually after a time. It's usually when you're not paying attention, or when you're off guard, or when you haven't scanned your energy in a while because life got in the way. That's when these things happen, and it's nothing that anyone did wrong. It's just the fact of life, right? Like, it's just like let's say you were walking around down the street with a piece of pizza and you walked past a pack of feral dogs, then, like, you weren't doing anything wrong by walking down the street with a piece of pizza, except the fact that you had a pizza and those dogs want it, right? So then they'll come chasing after you. So it's not like there was any fault. In attachments, there's never any fault. It's just the right place at the right time. You walk down the street, you're feeling sad, there's a spirit who wants to attach, they latch on, okay? That's how it works. And it's like very quick that it happens, and it's not, I just want to make it clear that it's not a fault scenario. Nobody is ever at fault for finding an attachment. Now, how long can they stay attached? Forever, kind of, indefinitely, if they want to. If they never get noticed and then nobody ever tries to remove them and they never try to remove themselves, like, people can die with attachment spirits, and many do. And going back to how common they are, guys, I think I've mentioned in an email I sent or in a blog post I've written that many shamanic practitioners estimate that 75% of the human population at this time has an attachment spirit. And I estimate that like 100% of any living human has had an attachment at some point in their life. So this is like incredibly common, attachment spirits. And it's like, once you know how to remove them, it's a piece of cake. It's just a matter of knowing how to remove. So that's what we're going to be talking about. Now, just to recap, there were those two levels of attachment: possession, which means they're fully inside, and exterior, so connecting to you through a cord, and this is very common. So those are the levels of attachment. Now, they can stay attached forever, indefinitely. I know of cases where there are children that get attachments, and those attachments perpetuate through adulthood. Now, there are situations in which an adult will have an attachment, and they'll notice that they'll say, okay, I've been seeing this dark spirit, since I was a child, and I still see them now, and, they're 40 years old. And that, in some cases, can mean that they've had an attachment for 40 years, and people die with attachments attached to them. Now, that brings me to my next point, and how many attachments can a person have? Now, there's such a thing as layered attachments. It is when somebody who has an attachment dies, and then they don't cross over, and they stay earthbound, and then they become an attachment. Okay, so then what happens is, person has an attachment, they die, they stay earthbound. Now you have two earthbound spirits linked together, the attachment and the person who died. That person who died then goes on to become an attachment to somebody else. So now you have a living person who has a person who died with an attachment and another attachment. Then that living person dies, and then they become, now you have a trail of three earthbound spirits who are connected, and then they become an attachment, and it can go on and on and on like this, where you can create these layers upon layers of attachments, like chains of attached spirits attached to one individual. Okay, it's weird, but it happens, and it actually can be a reason why people don't cross over. Now, I don't want to say that not everybody is offered the light once they die, but it is a possibility that when people die and they're given the opportunity to cross over, it can be difficult if they're not, if they don't believe in heaven, if they don't believe in angels, if they don't believe in crossing over, and they're in a particularly poor place in their life. It can be difficult for somebody who dies with attachments to cross over and elevate their energy enough to go into the light. So then they become stuck as an attachment just by the virtue of the fact that they had attachments when they died. Okay, so that's the phenomenon of layered attachments. And a person, an individual, somebody who's living can have just one attachment, but they can also have these layers upon layers upon layers of attachment. And they can have attachments that attach in multiple places, okay? So let's say you're looking at a client. Maybe it's you, maybe it's somebody else who has an attachment spirit. It's possible that they have just one. That's very possible. However, once one attachment spirit exists, they tend to attract others because other spirits will see this situation going on and be like, oh, I need energy. That person already has an attachment. That's an easy spot for me to attach. Okay, so there can just be one. Attachment spirits attract other attachment spirits, and attachment spirits can attach with their whole chain gang of attachment spirits, and they can attach in multiple locations. So on a living person, okay? So they can like stick their energy onto a person in many different spots on the body, and then that person can walk around having not only multiple attachments, but also multiple locations in which the attachment spirits are attached, okay? So many layers of attachment, many attachments can come in many layers. They can attach in many different locations, and you can just have one, but it's more common that you actually have more than one. When I've done attachment removals, it's most common that I see groups of 2 or 3 attachments. Sometimes those groups will be like entire family groups, actually, that are attached as an entire group. So just know that that's a possibility. And when you're looking for attachments, and I'm going to talk about a little bit later how to look for attachments and how to scan for attachments. When you're looking for them, know that if you see just one, it would also be wise to look for others, because it's many cases there are others. So just be aware of that. Now, how can you tell that somebody has an attachment? Like, what are the signs of attachment and what kind of damage can they do? Now, I have a whole blog on this topic. I'm going to link that blog in the follow-up email that I send, but I just want to cover some of those signs and symptoms of attachment. And as I do that, before I do that, I just want to make clear that a symptom does not necessarily mean attachment, right? So if I just say, somebody has nausea, that doesn't necessarily mean that they have stomach cancer, right? Like, that's one sign, but nausea is also the symptom for like 500 other illnesses, okay? It's the collection of symptoms and collection of other signs that define what a person has, okay? So one symptom does not necessarily mean attachment. A symptom can be a sign of many other things. It's just like you have a collection of signs and symptoms that you see and feelings to know if somebody has an attachment. Just like in medicine, nausea is a symptom of pregnancy, irritable bowel syndrome, a virus, the flu, like cancer, an ulcer. Like, there's many different things that a single symptom can be a sign of. And the symptoms that I list, those are not an end-all, be-all, okay? Like, these are not the only symptoms that exist. I'm not even going to tell you, like, all the ones that I know of. I'm just going to list some of the more common ones. So they're just symptoms, and they could be symptoms of other things, but taken together, these things considered, they could, and all other things considered, these symptoms could mean an attachment. And it's up to you to kind of use your intuition, use your, spiritual abilities, use your knowingness to check mark with these symptoms and collect information on other factors and tap into your abilities to tell, okay, yes, this person has an attachment, and that's what we need to deal with, okay? So what are some of those symptoms? Lethargy and fatigue. So chronic fatigue syndrome and being tired, that's probably the biggest symptom, because an attachment tends to drain a lot of energy, especially as they get more powerful and especially as you have more and more and more attachments. It's basically a giant energy leak where your energy is just being sucked away, and there's literally almost nothing you could do. No amount of food you could eat, no amount of sleep you can get where you can make the fatigue and the lethargy and the tiredness go away, because there is such a huge energy leak. So the biggest sign of an attachment is this like nonstop lethargy and fatigue issue. Another big sign is a chronic illness, okay? About like a bunch of different chronic illnesses. Like, you were healthy, or somebody or your client was healthy, and then all of a sudden you get this chronic illness, or you have this slow building of illness that builds and builds and builds and builds over time. That's a sign of an attachment, okay? Because people who die, attachment spirits, when they do die, they're not healed of any illnesses that they have until they cross over, okay? So not only are they drawing on your energy, making your immune system weaker and making your ability to fight illness weaker, it's also possible that they share with you some of the symptoms and some of the energy that created a sickness that they had when they died, okay? So that's a possibility, is that they can transfer back to you some of the sickness when they died, because they can also transfer to you or to a client their hostility, their meanness, their ill temper. There's those behavioral changes. So an attachment isn't just drawing energy away from you, they're also manipulating your energy. So it's possible that a chronic illness can be a sign of an attachment spirit because they're making you weaker. But then also, if they had a chronic illness, it's possible that they share the energy of that with you, and then that manifests in you, or I might say you, I mean the client. Okay, so other signs are nasty temper, anger, rage not otherwise present before, ill behavior, just general meanness. Those are signs, and snappiness. That's a sign of an attachment spirit, because attachment spirits tend to be male more often than they're female, although females are common. But then there's also like a greater incidence of attachment spirits that are male that are mean. Okay, so these behavioral changes, anger, nastiness, rage not otherwise present, if there's a switch in behavior where a person you love or your client had this huge switch in behavior, that's a sign that an attachment is present. Okay, and also sudden behavioral changes or personality type changes, also a sign of an attachment. Drug, alcohol dependence, that's a sign of an attachment, because attachments, spirits, when they die, some of them are addicts, okay? And some of those addicts don't want to give up the habit in death. So they will attach to a living human and then manipulate the behavior of that living human to create an addiction or to perpetuate an addiction. So drug and alcohol dependence is a sign that there's an attachment. Also, the longer stage that somebody has been addicted or dependent, the more likely it is that they have an attachment, because of how, I guess, the frequency through which that their spirit is separated from their body. Okay. Feeling followed, that is a sign of an attachment. If you feel like there's always somebody behind you, or you're always like feeling like there's a spirit behind you, that's a sign that there's an attachment, because attachment spirits do tend to attach from behind, and they tend to evade detection by not allowing you to see that they are there when you do turn around. And that's how they stay. That's how they like remain under the radar, is not being detected by you or anybody else. So if you're looking into it for a client who says they're feeling like they have somebody behind them, that's a place to look, is literally directly behind the person. And if it's you feeling followed, then it's the case that they're basically making it so you can't see them behind you, because they don't want to be detached. All right, so another sign, mood fluctuations, extreme and dangerous ones, feeling weighed down, and like there is like a heaviness to you, like your energy is being pulled down, and like there's a lowness or a density to your energy. That's a sign of an attachment. A negative outlook on life that wasn't otherwise present before, like a pessimistic outlook that is new. Seeing the same spirit over and over. So if you or a client is seeing the same spirit over and over and over and over, it's a sign that that spirit is attached. Now, it isn't always the case that it's attached. Oftentimes the same spirit will come to the client again and again and again because they want something, but they're not attached. But it's also the case that seeing the same spirit over and over and over again means that it's because they're always there, because they're attached to your energy. All right. And like I said, they can be sneaky about it. And that same spirit that you're seeing over and over and over again, or your client is seeing over and over and over again, can be tricky and make you believe that they're being helpful, and make you believe that they are helping you in some way, and basically diverting your attention from the fact that they would be an attachment. Okay. Now, attachments can also block the ability for somebody to connect with spirits that are in the light. So they can block your ability to communicate with guides, angels, light-based spirits, because they can basically control your energy and control it in a way that you are unable to create a connection in any way with a light spirit. So that's kind of the basic rundown of some of the symptoms of attachment. And the biggies are, like I said, lethargy and fatigue, chronic illness, anger, nastiness, rage not otherwise present before, sudden behavioral changes and personality changes, drug, alcohol dependence, feeling followed, seeing the same spirit over and over again, extreme mood fluctuations, feeling weighed down, pessimistic outlook on life. So all those things together can indicate that somebody has an attachment or many attachments. Now, as far as the damage that they can cause, they are not benign. People live with attachments for many, many years. And even if it seems like they're harmless, they're not harmless because they are drawing on your energy, okay? They are drawing on the energy of somebody, and no matter any way you slice it, that's not harmless. Like if something or someone is leaking your energy and sapping the energy from you, then that is not no harm, okay? They can cause lasting physical and energetic damage. This doesn't mean irreversible damage, but it can cause like lasting health and emotional and energetic issues. Now, like we talked about before, attachments can cause chronic health issues. They can cause fatigue. They can cause lasting behavioral and personality changes. They can cause addiction. They can cause things that would take many years and a great deal of healing in order to reverse, okay? So because they are manipulating energy and manipulating somebody's behavior, then what that means is over time, the longer that an attachment has to sink into the energy of a living person and to connect with and to infuse their energy with the energy of that person, basically the longer it's going to take for any residual energy that was left over to cycle out, remove, and be healed, okay? So once an attachment is removed, it's not like, woo, magic, all problems are healed immediately. I mean, sometimes it is if the attachment wasn't attached for very long, but if the attachment was attached for years, like once you cut the connection, like that's one level of it, but then you need to examine all the ways in which that attachment has affected the energy of the individual. And it could take years to reverse. Years, months, forever, like a long time. It can take to reverse these changes because it's not just physical issues that would need healing. It's also like behavioral issues and outlooks on life and things and emotional perspectives and thoughts. And these take a very long time. You guys know this in healing yourself. You guys know that reversing, self-deprecating thoughts and detrimental thoughts takes a lot of work. And reversing and healing yourself from physical issues takes a long time. And the longer that an attachment spirit has been attached, the longer it's going to take to reverse those issues. So a common complaint that people have after attachments are removed from them is, well, I'm not immediately better, or I don't have an immediately miracle healing reversal of all the problems that I was experiencing from this attachment. And it's like, well, I know that you're not immediately better. The attachment is gone, but that doesn't mean that all the energy and all the damage that energy caused over the time, over the years has been immediately reversed. Yes, spirit guides and a healer has pulled that energy out of you, but then you're going to have to do the work, or whoever it is, the client is going to have to do the work to continue to purge, heal, remove, replace, reverse that energy. It's not an overnight process. It just isn't. Removing an attachment can be quick. If, say, you or somebody else, you notice that there's an attachment that's attached and they've only been attached for a day, boom, and it was just some nasty personality changes that were very short-lived. Yes, of course, once the attachment is removed, that person will be back to themselves. But if the pattern has perpetuated for a very long time, then it's going to continue to perpetuate unless that person makes active changes in their life, in their outlook, intentional actions that they take to continue to reverse that energy. It's not going to be an overnight process. Once the attachment is removed, that's phase one. That's step one in the healing. And then they have to go through and figure out all the ways in which that has touched on them and start taking steps to reverse and heal. And this could be physical methods of healing. This could be energetic methods of healing where they continue to get energy treatments, where they continue to take herbal treatments, where they continue to get, alternative medicine treatments. Typically, modern medicine won't work to heal these types of things, but there's going to be many different ways that many different steps that somebody who has had an attachment for a while will need to take in order to continue to reverse that energy, okay? You guys may know this and have heard me talk about this before, but just say you have one energy healing and you have like a chronic health issue that you need to heal, it's not going to take just one healing. Like, you're going to need to do that energy work weekly at the very least, for an indefinite period of time. Like, when I personally, just saying, when I have a health issue that I would like to heal, I like do an energy visualization daily, sometimes several times a day, in order to continue to heal that for myself. So same is true for anybody who has an attachment or anybody who has any spiritual or health issue that they need. Is it's going to take multiple iterations of a similar healing in order to continue to move that energy out and to heal, okay? That being said, an attachment spirit, it's not unfixable. There is a belief that there are people who have like attachments attached to them for life, and that's how it's meant to be. That's not true. It's not unfixable. It can be fixed. Sometimes it just takes a lot of work. If you are a healer, just know that people who spirits, individuals who have attachments and have had attachments for many years are going to be your most challenging clients. Like, hands down. People who have spirit attached to them, like, that's very complex. And it's not just a one and done situation. It's a very complex situation, and it takes multiple sessions, and it's a very high needs, high hands-on scenario. Okay. So, that being said, attachment spirits, like, energetically, I kind of gave you guys the whole spiel on why attachments are so awful and damaging to your energy. But just to kind of give you guys the brief breakdown, attachment spirits can cause gaping holes in your aura, in the energy field once they're removed. They can cause massive vacuums of energy leaks where there's like this continual pull of energy away from you. They can cause chakra problems throughout your internal energy body. They particularly like to attach to the heart chakra and the solar plexus chakra. So those would be the two biggest areas of damage. Sluggishness, energetic sluggishness throughout the body. They can cause that. And then just like an overall feeling of sickness and malaise and illness and feeling like you can never get enough energy. I don't want to say like attachment spirits, there's like only certain types of illnesses and energy problems and issues that they can cause. But basically, you're talking about a situation where another soul and their whole energy component to them is coming in and attaching and latching on to another person. So as many complexities as a whole nother soul, complete with their like illnesses and pains and emotions and feelings from that they carry with them as a soul, as many complexities and, nuances as that soul can have, imagine layering that on top of another person who has their own complexities and own soul experiences and own energetic issues going on. So millions of possibilities here. Like, there's any scenario that you could potentially imagine is possible. Any way in which an attachment spirit can damage your energy that you could think up, what about this? What about this? What about this? Like, any scenario that you can come up with, yes, that's a possibility, because you're talking about overlaying the energy of one person on top of another person. Okay? And the possibilities there are limitless. So, with that spiel said, how can you guys tell if somebody has an attachment spirit? Now, there are two different ways, physically or behaviorally, and then psychically, okay? So physically or behaviorally, you can tell by a collection of those symptoms, or kind of like a gut feeling, observing a collection of the symptoms in that person, observing a lack of presence, seeming as though there's like a spiritual separation of an individual from the body, and then observing all these changes in interactions and symptoms that we listed before. That's how you would tell that somebody has an attachment physically. But because an attachment is a spiritual issue, the best way to know would be to use a combination of your physical signs and observations physically with psychic abilities, okay, with your spiritual abilities, with spiritual signs, because it is a spiritual issue. So you could tell entirely physically, yeah, sure. I mean, you can have some pretty strong hunches, right? Like, you have a collection of symptoms, you have a hunch that this is an attachment. But even if this was a medical situation, you'd then do a series of diagnostic tests in order to tell for sure that this is what that person had. Same is true for attachments, except we don't have diagnostic lab tests. What we do have are spiritual tests, okay, or psychic tests. And this does require some level of your ability to use psychic abilities, but not much. Like, there are different levels in which you can do this. Like, sure, go all in. Like, use your clairvoyance, use your clairaudience, use your claircognizance, talk to your guides, talk to their guides. But it can also be just as simple as asking a pendulum or using a pendulum. So let's talk about that. Psychically, the way that I like to tell is, well, first of all, let's talk about consent, okay? So before you are like reading into a person's spiritual situations, right? Like, we need to have consent to do that, okay? We need to have consent to like even be looking at that person psychically and spiritually and able to like diagnose them, right? So you can't like diagnose a person medically without having their consent to be treated, right? So in this case, you want their consent that you can even look at their energy and to be able to, that you can even look at their spirit in order to determine psychically or spiritually if they have an attachment, all right? So consent is important. So make sure that you get consent in some way. If it's you, yes, you have consent. If it's somebody else, ask them, okay, if you can help, if you can look into it, all right? You don't just say, like, I'm going to look and see if you have an attachment spirit. I mean, you can if you want to, but you can say, like, look, I have some healing abilities, and I am practicing, or I know how to use them, and I'd really like to be able to help you. Are you okay with that? And you do have to get their consent, okay, in some way or another. You have to be clear to get their consent. And then once you do, then you can use anything, within your psychic powers in order to diagnose that. So the easiest way for me, because I am clairvoyant and clairaudient and claircognizant and clairsentient, and I talk to my guides and I talk to spirit, is to ask. So the easiest way, the most direct way, is to ask your guides, and if it's for you, ask your guides if you have an attachment, and if it's for somebody else, ask their guides, okay? So their guides, somebody else has spirit guides, and they advise on that person. So if it's somebody else, ask their guides. If it's for you, ask your guides. Now, the way that you do this, the way that I do this, is that you visualize that person, whoever it is, it could be you visualize or imagine this person's spirit standing in front of you. Even if it's your own spirit, you imagine them standing in front of you, okay? And then you say, okay, guides, whoever guides you're asking, show me if this person has attachments, or tell me if this person has attachments. And if you're clairvoyant, then they will start to kind of populate as blobs behind that person, or you will start to feel a number if you're claircognizant, or you will hear a yes or a no, or you will hear a number, okay? Some way you will receive an answer to that question if you ask, okay, and you're able to receive an answer. Now, the other way that you can do as a double check for this, if you're not so sure on the abilities, is to use a pendulum, all right? If you have one, if you don't have one, I suggest you get one. So with your pendulum, if you've never used one before, you just hold it in your hand, whichever hand you choose. I choose my dominant hand. Some people prefer to use their non-dominant hand, but whichever. Use whichever hand you choose, and then hold it still. Ask the pendulum to center itself, and then ask it to show you yes, ask it to show you no, thank it for showing you yes, thank it for showing you no, and then ask the pendulum, does this person have an attachment? So that was get to show, and then get your answer yes. You can also ask the pendulum to show maybe or unknown, but that's like not really a good answer for this, because you don't want the pendulum to be like, maybe they have an attachment. Like, that's not helpful to anyone. You want to get a yes or a no answer. And then you can kind of, if you want to know how many attachments, do they have one attachment, yes or no? Do they have two? And just continue to count up, okay? It can get tiring if they have many, but you can try that. So those are the ways that you tell if somebody has an attachment. Physically, behaviorally, by using those symptoms and using your knowingness and by observing them and just kind of seeing if they match all the symptoms and the characteristics of having an attachment. And then psychically, by asking your guides or their guides, you ask for, if it's for you, you ask your guides. If it's for another person, you ask their guides. And then for action, or if you are not quite there yet with psychic abilities, but you want to get an answer, then use a pendulum, because anyone can use a pendulum. You don't have to like be clairvoyant or clairaudient. Anyone can use one, and anyone can get an answer from a pendulum, being that if that pendulum is meant to work with you. You can't get an answer from any pendulum. And this is a topic for another class, but not every pendulum is going to give you an answer. The pendulum that's meant to work with you will give you the answers that you need. All right. So, guys, we're going to go through the step-by-step process of removing attachments. We're going to go into troubleshooting, and then the class will be over. So we have a bit of a break now before we get into the process of removing attachments. So I'm going to use this break to kind of ask if you guys have any questions up until this point. If you do have a question, then press any number from 1 to 5 on your keypad, and I'll answer. Okay, your mic is on. Do you have a question?
Yeah, early on you said that the attachment spirit could possibly manipulate like your own spiritual doings. So if you use a pendulum, can the attachment spirit manipulate that?
That's a good question. And the answer to that would be yes, they can manipulate that. So yeah, no, that's a really good question. If you do use a pendulum and if you do ask your guides, then then basically, yeah, they could like block your ability to find out that information. Now, if that's the case, if that happens, then what I recommend is you just proceed. If like that is happening and you're suspecting that that is happening, then I just recommend you proceed to like removing that attachment, which we'll talk about next. And if they're like not able to be removed and you're not able to do that, then like that would be a scenario in which like you'd have to go to somebody else, like to go to like another healer and get another healer to help you out. And there's nothing wrong with that, like in using another healer. It's just if you can't use your own abilities and if attachment spirit's blocking you, then like there's like no other choice than to reach out for help and ask somebody else to help.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Okay. So I don't know who this is. I'm just going to turn the mic on for you. Okay. So
yes. Hi. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Hello? Oh, great.
Yes, I can hear you.
She was right on the dime. She asked the question that I wanted to ask. So I do have a pendulum, but I actually stopped using it like a year ago because I felt like some of the answers were not, I thought they were being manipulated. So I stopped it for a while, and I haven't pursued more studies and techniques with the pendulum. I am interested in doing that, but as soon as you mentioned the pendulum, I said, oh, I need to find a way to ask that question.
But so here's the thing. It's possible for other spirits to manipulate it that are not spirits. Makes sense? So manipulate it, but then like random earthbound spirits can manipulate it too, and then they wouldn't be attachments. So the way that you might be able to get around this, is if before you use a pendulum, you ground your energy, you clear your energy, and you create what I call as a light channel, where you basically call down divine light from above you and then run it through your body and then surround yourself with it. So then basically you and your pendulum are inside the channel, and then whoever else is not inside the channel, and then that way you're getting kind of a direct channel through which your pendulum can operate. Now, if you do have an attachment, then that attachment would be like kind of residually inside there with you, so that wouldn't work for that, but that would work for if it was just some like random jerk spirit who was like standing beside you, like trying to manipulate your answers.
I see. Have you heard of anyone using, and this is new information to me, like Merkaba visualization, something like that?
No.
Okay.
No.
All right.
I'm gonna look that up because I have not heard of that. Do you know what it is? Like, can you describe it?
It has the best the best I can explain. The Merkaba is a part of the flower of life symbol. So it's an ancient symbol. It's related to sacred geometry, and it's just a very powerful visualization. I know it has some history. It was brought and channeled through the ascended master known as Saint Germain. Are you familiar with that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So as far as using it as a visualization before you do any meditation or prayer, and, imagining like cloaking yourself in divine white light, I've heard of that. But then on top of that, I heard imagining yourself in the Merkaba, which basically, if you're looking at it, three-dimensional, but if you're looking at it from a two-dimensional perspective, it's a triangle facing down and a triangle facing up. But
I can see that. Yeah, no.
Yeah, you picture yourself inside of the center of that triangle. You know.
No, I get it.
You call in what you need to call in before you do whatever you need to do. So I haven't practiced that myself, but it's something that I was like, maybe I should start doing that, because I do want to work with my pendulum more.
I haven't practiced that method either. I think it's like I think that is a very helpful visualization tool, like visualizing the upside down triangle and then the right side up triangle and then yourself in there. That is, to me, when I see that in my mind, basically those two triangles are like your grounding energy and then your source energy, and then like you're in the middle of it. And I do that just like by my own visualization, but that visualization of the triangle above and the triangle below is like, I think is particularly helpful for somebody who might have trouble like doing the grounding above and then doing the grounding below, and just kind of add an extra layer of like assurance by like stacking that visual on top of it.
Yeah.
So I think that
absolutely.
I think that would be like a really helpful visualization to kind of like double up on your assurance that you are like within a divine channel as you're working.
Yeah, I will definitely look into that more. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, I'm going to put you back on mute. All right, and then we have one more question. Okay, so your mic is on.
Hi, in listening to all of this, my question is, can these attachments cause multiple illnesses in a person, or surgeries and these types of things?
Yes. No, that's a great question. Yes, they can. So it's just one attachment can cause multiple illnesses, or multiple attachments can cause multiple illnesses. So yes, my answer to that is like a resounding yes. Attachments can cause multiple illnesses, multiple problems, multiple illnesses within people, because if they're drawing on your energy, they can just kind of make it so that your body can't function, or they may particularly be interfering with physical processes and causing these situations. So absolutely, yes.
So if you remove these attachments, can you reverse the illnesses or improve them?
I mean, in theory, the answer to that is yes. It just depends. There's like in some cases, a physical illness can get far enough along where it can be very difficult to reverse it before the physical body reaches the point of death. Does that make sense? So a physical illness can get far enough along where it reaches the point where it's like too far, if you will. Like there's like there's like certainly miracle healings and miracle reversals can happen, but there's some points at which, if that physical illness takes it too far, then it like really pushes the limits of the physical body to like beyond the ability of like a spiritual healing that would act fast enough to reverse it in time to like save some serious thing from happening. So spiritual healing does work to reverse stuff, but sometimes it just doesn't work fast enough to reverse physical illnesses. But in theory, the answer is yes. If you remove the attachment and you are diligent in working to heal the energy and reverse the energy through like any number of like energetic healing strategies, herbal strategies, diet-based strategies, like any medical strategies that you use, then the answer is yes, you can reverse it in theory.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay, so that's it for questions for right now. So my step-by-step method for removing attachments. Now, the method itself has 6 steps, all right? And we're going to talk about each one of those steps, and I'm going to talk about it briefly, okay, and kind of give you the outline for what I use. I'm not going to give you, like, every detail, every small detail, and the reason for that is because part of this is, like, you need to step into your own power as like a healer, as an individual, and create your own rituals, create your own things that work, find your own style. So I'm going to give you the outline and as many details as possible that I can give you, but we have like the whole healing, like removing an attachment can take 45 minutes, and like, it's kind of very nuanced. So I want to give you the outline of how to do it, but then it's up to you to kind of find your own style within that outline, and that's like your medicine as a healer, all right? And you're a healer if you're removing attachments, regardless of whether you're doing it for yourself or others, all right? So my process is 6 steps, and it's like a protecting yourself, a setting the healing stage to get started, communicating with the spirit, crossing that spirit over, and we'll talk about what happens if they won't cross, healing the area of attachment, and then clearing and cleansing everything after that. So that's 6 steps, all right? And then after we get through the steps, we'll talk about troubleshooting, and then we can ask questions. So that's kind of our agenda for the rest of class. So first step in removing an attachment is making sure that you are protecting yourself from reattachment or from anyone else's attachments coming onto you. That's what you want to do. So this part is my strategy for setting, like basically protecting and clearing and protecting my energy before I start. So you are about to do a healing on yourself or on somebody else. Now, what that means is that you want to make sure that you are in like the utmost perfect, like cleared, grounded, centered space and protected space so that you can do that healing like in the cleanest way, in the most possible, in the like highest and greatest good. And you want to think about this as like you are like a surgeon. You are doing a spiritual surgery to remove an attachment. Before you start that surgery, you want to make sure that you are clean and that you have washed your hands and that you're wearing like an operating gown and that you are completely covered up so that like if somebody's blood splashes on you, then you're not going to like get, sick from that. And you're not going to like get an attachment attached back onto you, okay? So you want to make sure that you're like clean, clear, sterile, like ready to go and completely covered up so that if there's a splashback, then it won't harm you in any way, all right? So that's the purpose of this first step, which I call protecting yourself. Now, you want to use, if you already have a clearing strategy that you use before you do sessions, use that, all right? If you don't, then you can use mine. And mine is, the first thing that I do is I ground myself, and that is I visualize my energy moving down into the earth and connecting with source energy down below. If you don't know how to ground yourself, I have a blog on the website. You can just search Sarah Petruno grounding, and you'll find it. And then I take the grounding one step further, and I then visualize divine energy from above coming down and pouring into my body and then connecting with the grounding cord from below. So I bring energy up from below and then I bring energy down from above. So now I have this two-way flow of energy where I'm connected to divine source below and I'm connected to divine source above. And then the next thing that you'll want to do is once you have that divine flowing source of channel, you imagine it coming down from the sky, down through your crown, flowing down through your body, and then I imagine it flowing down and out my chest and out my hands. And that is the way that I ensure that I am working with and I'm healing using source energy and not my own energy. So I imagine that divine light from above coming down, flowing through, and pushing out my chest and pushing out my hands, okay? So that's step one, is grounding. And that creates a channel from above and below, and that makes sure that you are in this light channel, okay, and acting within divine light and acting within, in alignment with source, okay? So next thing you'll want to do, and what I do, is I call my energy back from any sources that have scattered about, like, away from myself. This is called energy retrieval, and this is just you visualize any place during the day, during the week that you have given your energy to. This can be your family members, this can be your job, this can be any event, situation, person to which you've given energy. Just imagine each one of those things in front of you, and then imagine your energy flowing back to you as streams of light. All right? This brings your energy back to you. This makes sure that you're then operating with your full range of your personal power. Then you'll want to cut cords from all those people who you gave energy to, and then any cords around you, any cords of attachment that anyone else has attached to you. And the way that I do this is I visualize myself wearing like a suit, I guess like a cloth suit, and then I imagine that cloth suit kind of spinning off myself and then ripping down and tossing it into the center of the earth, and with that suit goes all the cords that were attached to me, okay? So you want to imagine yourself with a suit around yourself, and then all the cords attached to that suit. Imagine that suit coming off, being tossed down to the center of the earth to be cleansed, and then those are your cords that are cut, and then as soon as that cord suit is off, you want to imagine a wash of divine light coming down over you, like a waterfall, basically a waterfall of divine light splashing down over you and surrounding and wrapping yourself with energy. And as it does this and rinses over you, this is cleansing your aura of any foreign energy, of any low energy, and then it's also sealing your aura. So the wash of waterfall of light spills down over you, and then as it washes everything off of you, and then it kind of swirls around you and seals you up in an egg of golden light. So what you've done there is you've grounded from above and below. You've done an energy retrieval. You've called your energy back. You've cut cords, and then you've rinsed and sealed your aura. So at the end of this, what you'll have is you'll have a grounding link from source below and from source above. You'll have energy flowing through you, down through your crown, and then out through your chest. And then you will have all your cords cut. You'll have your energy washed, and then you'll have your aura all sealed up in golden light. Okay? Now, if you are the person with the attachment, then you won't have done this all for them, and they, depending on how closely they're attached to you, it's possible that they'll be on the outside of this aura, but that what's not possible is that they won't be within your like grounding cord and your divine cord, because you just created that for yourself. Okay, so you've just created this like wide open channel of divine light above for you, and this wide open channel of divine light below just for you. So they won't be inside of that, and this creates basically a direct link between you and divine source and spiritual information, so that you will be able to act and to remove a spirit from yourself, even if they are attached to you, because you created this link just for you. All right. And then any energy that flows through you, if you are using a pendulum like we talked about with that question, then any energy that flows through you is coming directly from divine source, and is like that other attachment spirit is not like within it. Okay. All right. So that's step one, is protecting yourself, creating a ritual, creating a regimen in which you are clearing your energy, grounding your energy, creating a divine channel, rinsing your aura, sealing yourself up. All right. That's like the step one. Step two is what I like to call setting the healing stage. All right. So the healing stage is a space that you create in your physical world in which you will act within the spiritual world. Okay. So I like to think of this as an operating theater, or like an operating room, where you have a space in the physical world. It could be the space like directly in front of a chair that you're sitting in, that you close your eyes and you visualize and set up like a sacred spiritual container, okay, in which you will work, in which the spiritual work will take place. This to me, when I do it, I close my eyes and I visualize like a grand circle in the space in front of me, and then that is your like spiritual space in which you will work. That is the stage in which you'll complete the healing. This is your healing arena. All right. And then what you want to do is start calling in your helper spirits. All right. So you're not going to do this attachment removal by yourself. You're not. You are going to orchestrate it, but you have your spirit guides that you want to call in. And then if you're doing it for somebody else, you want to call in their spirit guides. All right. And then you also want to call in an archangel. So what you want to do is, once you close your eyes, you have a spiritual space that you've set up. All this is you literally, if it's just a space in front of you, you visualize like a circle in the room in front of you, and it's just like a spiritual space that overlays your physical space, and that's the space in which you're going to perform the healing, because this is a spiritual thing that you're doing. You're doing like a spiritual healing, and you're going to do it in the spiritual space, and it's just going to overlay right on top of your physical space. For me, this is a space right next to my desk in my office, in which I have like no furniture. It's like in the open room space of my office. And I just visualize that in that circle the healing is taking place. All right. Now, once you visualize this healing stage, what you want to do is you want to call in your spirit guides. And if you're working with somebody else, you want to call in their spirit. All you do is you say, I invite to join me angels, spirit guides, deceased loved ones, spirits who are in the light of the individual whom I'm helping to join me now and to help me act in the highest and greatest good of all parties, or any other invocation you want to use where you make clear that you're only inviting in light spirits who are there to help for the highest and greatest good. All right. Now, to help you kind of sort out spirits and who's who, if you're doing this professionally, then what I recommend is you have your spirits stand on one side and the other person's spirit stand on one side. For me, the way this works is I have the other person's spirit stand on the right side of my circle, and then my spirit stand on the left side of my circle, creating like these semicircle arcs around me, in front of me. Okay. And then what you want to do is call in an archangel to join you. Each one of us has an archangel that helps us with these like more serious healing issues, okay? You can choose an archangel if you don't know one. Research archangels and choose one that calls to you. If you already have an archangel that you call upon, or an ascended master, I wouldn't use ascended masters actually, just an archangel that you call upon, then use that archangel. For me, this is Archangel Michael. And what you want to do is call in Archangel Michael to join you, because it's the archangel who's going to open the crossing over portal for the spirit who's attached. Now, if you want to cross over if you want to call in an additional archangel for help, that's like not your archangel, the one I would recommend is Archangel Azrael. And this is the archangel who like helps with death and crossing over. All right. So that's who would help you. Like if you needed like backup for a serious case, then I would call in the archangel that you want, and then Archangel Azrael. Okay. Now you have your healing circle all set up, and you have your spirit guides on one side, and if you're doing this for somebody else, you have your spirit guides their spirit guides on the other side. Now, with your eyes closed, what you want to do is kind of visualize a channel of light from above, opening up and shining down like a spotlight on your healing circle. It's like you're on a stage, and you have like a giant spotlight above you, and it shines down. All right? So this is you've opened up a divine channel of light. So you have your healing stage. You have your spirit guides, you have their spirit guides, you have your archangels, you have this divine channel of light shining down on the stage. You are all ready to go. All right? Now, what you want to do is call in the spirit of the person who you want to remove the attachment from. All right? And this spirit of the person whom you want to remove the attachment from stands in the center of your healing stage, like right in the center of the spotlight, okay? So this person, their spirit stands directly in front of you. Their spirit guides are behind them to the right. Your spirit guides are behind them to the left. The archangels, I usually have them stand to the right with the other person's spirit guides. So then what you have is this healing arena. Now, if it's you who you are healing, the way that you do this is you visualize your own spirit stepping out of your body, going to the healing stage, and turning around to face you. Okay? And then once that person is there, once you're there, your spirit is there in the healing stage, the attachments will also be there within the healing stage, all right, within this like divine shower of light, because your spirit has stepped out, it's turned to face you. The attachments are attached to the spirit, not your physical body. All right. Now, if it's somebody else, then you ask that person's spirit guides to bring forth that person and place them in the center of the room and the center of the healing stage. And then their spirit guides will bring forth the spirit of that person, place them in the center of the stage, and then their attachments will be around them there. All right. So that's like this you have this healing stage set up now. So you've protected yourself. Healing stage is set up. The spirit of the person who you're ready to work on is standing in the middle of the stage. All the archangels, all the spirits, they're all assembled. Everyone's ready to go. All right. So next step, communication. Step number 3. Now, you want to adjust this to your level of ability. So in your level of psychic ability is what I mean. Some people are going to be able to use their clairvoyance at this stage and be able to see clairvoyantly how many spirits are there and talk to them and ask those spirits to tell them things clairvoyantly. Some people are going to be able to use clairaudience. Some people are going to be able to use their claircognizance, all right? But this is my belief. This is something that everybody can do, and you just have to practice doing it and get confidence doing it and know that the answers you're receiving are coming from the spirits. Now, communication, what I mean by this is you have to directly address the attachment spirits that the person that are attached to the person. You're not going to talk to their spirit guides. You're not going to talk to your spirit guides. You need to directly address the attachment spirits and get down and dirty with them, okay? Like, you need to get in with it. You need to, like, directly approach them and directly address them, all right? Because they are human and they're attached for a reason, and you need to figure out that reason, resolve that reason in order to get them to cross over. Now, here's the thing. I have never encountered an attachment spirit who would not cross over once you addressed all their needs and softened what they were angry about. If some spirits, it will take a half an hour to 45 minutes of negotiation. But like after a while, the more you talk, the more you break down those barriers, the more they'll soften and cross over. You can think of it like therapy, okay? Like you were the therapist in the situation. You're going in there and you were talking to that attachment spirit and figuring out what hurts they had, what caused them to be attached, why they're attached, what they're doing there. You need to find out and connect with them on a human level in order to break down those walls and get them to realize what they're doing and get them to cross over. And a spirit, if you come at a spirit in an angry way, where you're like, what are you doing here? You're ruining everything. You need to leave now. You were banished for good. Where you're like screaming at them like you're on a ghost show or something, that's not going to work. Like, you need to appeal to them like a human being and start breaking down those barriers. Now, the way that you do this is you visualize where the spirit is. If you know where they are, you can ask your spirit guides to show you where they are, or ask their spirit guides to show you where they are. Or you just say, okay, if this person standing in front of me had an attachment, where would that attachment be? And you just guess, and that guess is going to be where it is. Okay. And then if they have more than one attachment, you're going to have to work one by one. You can only handle a one at a time here. All right. So you're going to just choose a spirit, choose a spot, start somewhere, address them, and just start talking like a human. Like, you have to counsel them like they're a human being. And this can all happen in your mind, okay? This whole conversation can happen in your mind. But what you're going to do is we're going to want to start talking to that attachment spirit. You're going to want to ask their name. You're going to want to ask the year that they think it is. You're going to want to ask how they died, and when they died, and why they're there, like why they're attached, like what their purpose is. You're going to ask why didn't they cross over and why won't they cross over, and what their agenda is now and what they're doing, and they might be angry. And you might be getting some pretty combative answers. And keep asking those questions and start addressing their needs. Okay, because they're going to have some needs and some reasons why they didn't cross and some things they want to do, and you're going to have to start using your knowledge of your world and using your like therapy skills as a human, where you're going to have to start consoling this person, making them less angry, making them understand, and starting to help them with being compassionate, and help them kind of be compassionate and have some compassion, because some of them are going to be angry. Some of them are going to have been wronged in their life, and they're going to be wanting to get revenge, and that's the reason that they haven't crossed over. And you're going to have to keep counseling and keep talking and keep convincing them, okay? And this is the part that takes the longest time, all right? This is the part that takes the longest time, is counseling these spirits. And even if what you're going to be doing is you're just going to be talking in your head, basically, having a conversation in your mind. And it might feel imaginary. You might not feel like you're getting answers, but keep talking. Just keep talking until you stop feeling resistance, until your eyes well up with tears, until you start feeling like they're getting it and they're connecting, okay? Using this technique where you're acting basically as a counselor to the attachment spirit, I've never had a spirit that wouldn't cross over. Some will cross over immediately, and you say, this is what you're doing. This is how you're harming this person. Are you aware of this? Would you like to cross over? Do you want to go see your wife on the other side? Some of them, like, immediately, well, yes, we want to cross over. But some of them take some time, and you just have to keep talking. And it might feel like you're making it up. It might feel like you are just kind of like being crazy and having like a conversation in your head. But literally, like, just keep going, okay? Now, here's where it requires a little bit of nuance. That's step 3 is communication. You're moving now into step 4, which is the crossing over period. Our end goal here is to get them to cross over and to like release their energy from you or from the client, and to like complete the healing. So you want to heal the spirit by having them cross over, and you want to heal the client by, healing their energy from the attachment. So you start to have to work in with a little bit of nuance as you move from communicating with them into the phase of crossing over, all right? And this is where it is kind of a bit of a dance, and it requires like a little bit of you to kind of be communicating with them while multitasking and doing something on the side. And what I mean by that is, as this spirit starts to soften and starts to like get softer, and you feel they start to get emotional and like kind of regret what they did and like want to cross over and like want to make amends, as they're doing this, you want to start the crossing over process. And what the first thing you want to do is kind of like signal to your archangel and say in your mind, okay, Archangel Michael, will you open the portal now? And what you want to do then is then on your cue, basically on your cue, the archangel will open the portal of light, open the stairwell of light, and begin and like start creating that opening for the spirit to cross over. All right. What this looks like for me is basically if you imagine the sky and then kind of like an attic stairway coming down, where like a stairway kind of lowers from the sky and creates this giant bright white light stairway to heaven, if you will. So as the spirit that you're talking to starts to soften, you want to signal to Archangel Michael or whoever your archangel is, okay, start lowering the stairwell. And then as you continue to talk to the spirit, you want to ask Archangel Michael or whoever your archangel, I say Michael because that's me, but ask whoever your archangel is to say, hey, will you bring forth the spirits on the other side who this person would be most willing to go to? That's the key, is you want that spirits that appear in the crossing over window to be the ones who the individual would be most willing to go to upon crossing, all right? Some spirits might not have many people on the other side that they love or that they would want to go to, but that's not your job to decide who that would be. It's the job of the angels, okay, to decide who it is that would most entice that person to cross, because your goal here is to get the spirit to a point where they're like really would like to cross over, and even if they might not be sure, but to then present them with somebody or some things or many people on the other side that it would be like so... that would be very hard for them to resist crossing over upon seeing those people, all right? So as they start to soften, you say, okay, Archangel Michael, open the portal. Okay, Archangel Michael, put some spirits in that doorway that this person would want to go to. Sometimes, guys, it's a pet. Sometimes it's a dog. If not, sometimes the archangels will have to bring multiple spirits, and you say, okay, this isn't working, bring somebody else. Sometimes the last stop that works is like a dog, a childhood dog. Okay, so just know that is a situation that could happen. And so then what the situation, now that you've started the crossing over process, and spirits are coming forward, that spirit who you're the attachment spirit, they're now ideally facing the stairwell, and they're starting to move towards it. And you're kind of continuing to communicate with them, continuing to like nudge them and push them and kind of encourage them to go forward and go into the light, tell them everything's going to be okay, tell them they'll be able to see their loved ones over there, tell them they'll be able to like look over whatever the heck they were looking over, tell them that, you know, somebody is going to take care of something. I mean, don't make promises you can't keep, but try your best to kind of reassure them and make reassurances to them. And then if all goes well, eventually they'll start to move towards the light. Okay, and start to move towards the stairwell. When they start doing that and ascending up this time, is start pulling the energy back they held from your client. Okay, so basically, as they start to move and stretch away from the client, whoever is standing in the middle, you're going to see if you're clairvoyant or if you're not, what will exist between the person standing in your healing circle and that spirit is going to be these cords of light that we talked about, right? And those are the cords that connected the individual to the attachment spirit. And as the attachment spirit starts to move into the light, you want to eventually kind of like pull those back. Like, you know, use your hands or use your mind to visualize those kind of cords snapping off and pulling back and pulling that energy back. And that's the energy that they were holding that belongs to the client, okay? So you want to kind of pull those back and imagine that energy going back into this client, okay? Pouring back into the client, filling them back up, all right? And then as that happens, you want to take scissors, imagine scissors, visualize scissors, go snip, 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 and cut those cords from the attachment spirit as they begin to move up the stairway. And then those cords come back and flop down and fall down. And then you want to leave that be for a second and then follow the attachment, watch the attachment spirit and ensure that they move up the stairway, go all the way to the top of it, and then as soon as they reunite with their loved ones and then they're at the top of the stairs, even if this is just a feeling that you have, what you want to do then is say, okay, Archangel Michael, close the portal. And then the stairway to heaven will go back up and like fold back up into the sky, and then they're crossed over. All right? So that's the brief process of crossing over. You don't want to close the portal, though, if you have more spirits to attach. So let's say that you crossed over the attachment spirit and there's 3 more waiting. Keep the portal open, and then as soon as those cords and are cut from that one spirit, then you say, okay, move to the next one. And then you want to keep going until all spirits are crossed over, all spirits are detached. And then as soon as everyone that's going to cross over is crossed over, then you want to visualize and ask Archangel Michael, Archangel, whoever, to close the portal back up and fold that the light portal back up into the sky. And then that's it. So the crossing over process kind of melds with the communication process, and that you want to be communicating with the attachment spirit the whole time while you're guiding them into the light. All right? So step 3 is communication. Step 4 is crossing over. And the crossing over process is broken down into these several steps where you're opening the light portal, asking Archangel to open the portal, where you are asking the spirits to come forward that would most entice that person to cross. Then you're watching and like witnessing, observing as that spirit begins to move towards the light. If they don't, ask for more enticers, more spirits to show up, pets, for example. As they start to move over, then you want to immediately like kind of pull the energy back that they were holding on to your person and then cut those cords with your spirit. And then as soon as you're done with all the attachments crossing over, you want to close that portal back up. And then that's it. Then you're done crossing over and you're done with the attachments, that portion of it, all right? So then the next step, step 5, is healing the area of attachment. Okay? So after all your spirits are crossed over, what you want to do is start healing, energetically healing the areas that were attached. All right? So for this, it depends on where the spirits were attached and how they were attached. So the first thing that you want to do is cut those cords from the person themselves. You cut them from the attachment already, so you want to go back through and cut cords from the person who had the attachment and get rid of those cords. Then cords are cut, you're going to want to systematically go through, and at each spot that there was an attachment, you're going to want to use your clairvoyance, your clairsentience to feel out, to see where the damage is, and remove it. And the way that you remove it, as I visualize the damage as black areas, dark, gunky areas in the body, and then I imagine and visualize that gunk falling away, being scooped out, being pushed out by light, being blasted out, various methods of kind of pushing out and manipulating that energy out, just to get rid of all that gross residual energy. You want to cleanse that out, remove the gross energy, the low energy. And this will come with time as you get better at doing this, as you get better at manipulating energy. It's just like your skills will improve and it'll be easier for you to know where it is. It'll be easier for you to know how to do it. It'll be easier for you to like recognize what spaces to do it. Say you remove an attachment from yourself and then you don't know how to then like heal the energy. Then my recommendation would just kind of do like an overall like chakra cleanse. I have one on my website in the shop, or to do like an aura cleanse, or to do like any visualization where you are kind of pulling divine energy down through your body and then pushing it out. And that when you push divine energy out through an area, you inherently are kind of pushing the dark energy out and it falls to the ground, okay? So you want to keep going with this and keep going with this healing portion until you filled in and removed all the dark energy, and you filled it in with light and then healed it over and sealed it, and everything looks nice and is back to normal, all right? And like I said earlier in the call, like usually this isn't like a one and done situation. Like you want to do one layer of healing when you do it, but then as that layer of healing heals, like energy that was like stuck deeper and lower energy that was like more ingrained will begin to rise to the surface and come up again, and you'll want to like repeat the healing process and like re-cleanse the energy and reflush the energy again. Now, this is a super important step, and I would advise you never to skip this step, because let's just say you remove all the attachments from whoever, then there are all these gaping holes of energy where like the attachment was attached and feeding on their energy, and then they're done with the healing, and then they go out into the world and they have all gaping holes of attachment, and like what's the first thing to do? Get 30 more attachments, like right after they do it, right? This is to say that like even if you did do all of this, that somebody wouldn't get more attachments afterwards, but this is like a really important step in like preventing the immediate reattachment of any number of spirits. All right, so that's step 5, healing the area of attachment. And then step 6 is cleaning up and cleansing everything. So what you'll want to do with the person that you're healing is you'll want to seal their energy with light. All right, so just like you did for yourself, where you imagined a waterfall of light flowing down over you and then sealing up and swirling up into like a golden egg, you'll want to do the same thing for that person. So as soon as you've healed all the areas, you'll want to use a waterfall of light to kind of wash over their energy one more time. And then I like to visualize a vacuum cleaner, a vacuum nozzle, going all around their energy and kind of sucking up any residual dark energy that was around that person. And then after you suck it all up, you want to wash their energy field one more time with this divine cleanse of light, and then seal up their aura and create like an egg-shaped golden bubble of energy around them. These are all visualizations that you just visualize happening, and as you visualize it, it does happen. Now, once you've sealed up the aura and everything's clean and you've sucked up away all the low energy and you've disposed of it, and what I mean by dispose of it is when you suck up and remove the slow energy, remember you guys created like a grounding hole in the earth? You kind of want to visualize yourself tossing that energy, low energy, down into the earth and combusting into lava, divine light, being returned to source energy. That cleans it up down below you. Okay, so that kind of like completes the whole clearing and cleansing process, and you've healed the person, you've sealed up their energy, the attachments are crossed over. If all goes well, we'll talk about if they don't cross over. But you're all done there. Now, if it's somebody else that you were healing, the last stage in doing this is you will want to cut the cords that you had to that person as you were healing them. And what I like to, this happens with any healer, is when you're working with somebody, because you're working so deeply with them, then you create a cord to that person. And at the end of the healing session, it's your duty to detach the cord and release that person to their guides. Now, what I like to imagine to do this, if you're doing this for another person, is you have this person and their spirit in front of you. They're in their sealed off bubble of energy. All right. You visualize a cord that connects you and that person. You snip the cord from you, and then you kind of hand over the end of the cord to their team of guides, and then their team of guides, you dismiss them and you say, okay, thank you for your help. We're all done here. And then they are dismissed, and then they return the person to their home. Basically, they take the spirit of that person and they bring them back to the person. And then you're done with that. Now, if it's you who you're removing attachments from, what you'll want to do is then visualize the spirit that's standing in front of you, stepping back into your body, turning around, filling your energy, and like pairing back up with you. And then you're done, and that's it for the attachment healing process. And the last thing that you'll want to do is you will want to clear your energy and clean everything up. So you just completed a surgery in the spiritual world. Now what you want to do is clean yourself up and off. And the easiest way that you can do this is to stand up. If you were sitting down, stand up, step forward into the healing space that you created, step forward into it, like physically stand up and step forward, close your eyes, visualize yourself wearing like a suit, or I like to visualize like a Tyvek, like a white biohazard suit. Visualize yourself wearing like an operating outfit, a suit, something, and visualize yourself zipping it off, stepping out of it, throwing it down on the floor as debris, and then it being sucked down into the earth and then blast into light. And then you want to imagine a wash of energy coming over you, rinsing you off, shaking off your hands. And then you want to kind of look forward and say thank you to your guides, dismiss your guides, and then the healing stage that you were in, kind of just visualize it being rinsed with a waterfall of light, like rinsed clean, like you're washing the table up, washing the whole stage up with light. And then just visualize it closing, and like the curtain closing, and then the portal of light below you closing, and the portal of light above you closing. Just imagine everything closing up, and then step backwards, and you are done. And that's it. That is the whole process of removing an attachment spirit. So just to recap, the first step is protecting yourself, grounding, clearing, calling your energy back, protecting your aura. The second step is setting the healing stage. So creating that healing arena where you open a channel of light, you call in your guides, you call in their guides, you call in the angels, and then you envision the person you're healing standing in the center of that room, or standing in the center of that healing stage, all right? And then you communicate with the spirits who you are attaching, who are attached as humans, as a counselor role, and you can do this within your mind. As you communicate with them, you begin the crossover process. And then you, after they cross over and the portal is closed, you heal the area of attachment. And then you clean and clear everything up, and you're done. Okay, so just a couple troubleshooting things I wanted to touch on before we finish up here. Now, the first one is what to do when one won't leave or cross over. Now, the situation is I have never had this happen. If you do everything the way that it said, if you continue to talk to this person and break down their walls, eventually pretty much all spirits will cross over. There are some spirits on this earthbound spirits on this earth right now who won't cross over, and that there's nothing you could do about that. If that's the case, if you encounter a spirit that won't cross over, there's two reasons for this. One, let's say you are doing the healing for somebody else and you encounter a spirit who won't cross over after talking, then that could be a sign that the person you are helping needs to learn how to do it themselves, and that spirit, they need to learn how to stand up to that spirit themselves, okay? That's one reason why they won't cross. Another reason why they won't cross, if it's you, is if this is a lesson for you to kind of take your power back from the spirit and stand up for yourself and put your foot down, okay? And kick them out and shove them away and detach themselves for you. The issue here, and this is that's if they won't detach or if one won't leave, okay? And nobody, it's a spirit's choice if they don't want to cross over, but they are in no cases ever allowed to be attached to, and you have or anyone or the client. So long as the client takes control, stands in their power, and says, "Get off me! You cannot be attached." But you can't be here. It's okay if you don't cross over, but you cannot be here. Then that's what you do in that scenario. Is if one won't leave or cross over, that's fine if they don't want to cross over, but they can't be attached to you or your client. They just can't. And the way that you get around this is coaching, if it's for a client, coaching your client through doing this themselves and for standing up for themselves and pushing the spirit away. And if it's for you, then you literally taking your power freaking back from this jerk and say, no, this is my body, get away, you can't use my energy, and you have to put your foot down, basically, and stand up for yourself, and you're not powerless, you can do it. You just have to really stand up for yourself here. So those are the big ones, those are the biggies for what to do if one won't leave or they won't cross over. They don't have to cross, but they can't stay here. All right? You have to let them know that they can't be attached, forcibly remove them, and heal and clear the area. If they are giving you major amounts of problems, you can call upon two archangels and visualize them, or your spirit guides, particularly a shark guide or a tiger guide, and visualize that person being dragged off by angels or by spirit guides and separating themselves from you or your client. That's a way that you can forcibly remove them. All right, so what to do if attachments keep attaching and you have continual attachment scenario? This is a problem for people who have had attachments for a long time. It's because there's this feeling of being powerless and not being able to do anything about it, and that feeling of powerless and not having any power is a low energy state. And that continual low energy, or any state where you remove an attachment and they continue to be in a low energy emotional state or a physical state, then it's just very easy for an attachment to come back the next day, for example. You do the healing and everything's great, and then the next day they're still miserable or they still feel powerless, then boom, like attachment can come back. And the only way to fix that is to like empower that person to get out of a low energy state and to make them believe that they can choose their journey and choose the way that they view the world. And sometimes that's not your path to lead. And sometimes if it's you, then you have to figure out a way how to like be empowered and to take your power back and to take your energy back from this person and to snap out of and to like get into a high energy state. And this can be a journey. It can take a long time, but it is possible. It's also possible that somebody who keeps getting attachments, like if it's a client or if it's you, then it's possible that the soul path of this individual is to help attachment spirits and to help earthbound spirits. And the lesson here is that not that you're a magnet for them, but that you need to set up boundaries in your life so that you can deal with spirits on your terms and that they're not becoming attached to you. So that you can help earthbound spirits cross over. Because, I mean, this is a life path for some living people, is to help spirits who aren't crossed. Because as a healer, anyone who's a healer, the role isn't just to help the living, it's also to help the deceased, because it's to help the spirit, to help the soul. And there's living spirits and there's deceased spirits. And some people, their soul path is to learn how to and become empowered to help those who have not crossed over and to help them find healing. Okay, and with that being said, I just wanted to quickly touch on something that I didn't mention during the how to remove an attachment segment. Now, in the communication process, when you're talking to earthbound spirits, it is very possible that you may encounter a spirit who has some healing that they need to do in order for them to cross over. Like they need to release some pain from their heart chakra, or they need to let go of some emotional trauma that happened to them. And it might be your role as the healer to kind of help them release that and to help that spirit heal. I've had to help heal attachment spirits before they would cross over in the past, like heal a heart chakra or heal an emotional burden or do a soul retrieval on an attachment spirit. Yes, you might have to do a healing on an attachment spirit before they cross over. Okay, so the last thing that I briefly wanted to talk about is how to avoid attachments, how to avoid getting them in the future. Attachment spirits are very common as you're beginning a spiritual development path, and they're also very common in non-spiritual people. So people who aren't spiritually aware tend to have attachments. People who are like that just like don't even pay attention to that sort of thing tend to have attachments because they're like easy targets and they're not paying attention. And then on the other end of the spectrum, people who are very spiritually aware and are like very much beginning to just open up like spiritually are also tend to get more attachments. And the reason for this, like newly spiritual people tend to get more attachments, is because like your energy tends to be more open, tends to be less guarded, tends to basically like you're like fresh meat, like a freshman at college or something. It's like fresh meat, like you're more naive. A person who is new spiritually is just more naive to these sorts of things and more just like doesn't know and doesn't like have a system set in place. So then attachment spirits see you guys, not see somebody who is opening spiritually as like, you have a lot of energy, you're very spiritual, you have like a lot of like a strong source of connection to divine energy, but at the same time, there's also a naivete about it and a lack of boundaries and a lack of knowing about it. So it's just like, a target in the sense that you're like somebody who's just developing spiritually is very high value because they have this like unlimited source of spiritual energy flowing through them through their, connection to divine energy. But then also they have less of an awareness of like how to deal with these sorts of things. So it's easy target situation. So that's like a reason why attachments tend to be really common in people who are just opening up spiritually. Now, how to avoid them getting them? Best ways to avoid getting them is the best way to avoid getting them into the future is to continue to heal pain, low energy, and I guess physical illness and spiritual illness and emotional illness, continuing to heal yourself and to continuing to heal those things that cause the spirit to attach in the first place. So there's always a reason why and when a spirit attached. Like there's always was an opening. There was always some reason that your energy was low at that time that a spirit was able to attach. And you continuing to heal yourself and to release low energy and to release pain energy and to release held on tight emotional traumas and pains, as you continue to release those things, and as anyone continues to release and heal and cope with those things, they become less not as much of a carrier of low energy, if you will. So the more that you continue to heal low energy, the happier of a person you become, the more peaceful you become, the calmer you become, the fewer instances of low energy you attain just in day-to-day life, and that means the fewer instances and scenarios in which you would find yourself in that an attachment could attach to you. So by continuing to release energy, to heal yourself, to heal pain, you are making it less possible for attachment spirits to attach to you, because you're basically continuing to raise your energy up and up and up and up and up, so that your energy is just so high that even when you do hit low energy phases, it's still not low enough for an attachment spirit. And that's the best way to avoid it, to continue to heal yourself. And if you are prone to attachments, or someone's prone to attachments, the best way that they can avoid it is to protect your energy every freaking day, and wake up in the morning and do an energy visualization where you protect yourself, and very best to not find yourself in a situation where you're feeling sad or a low energy state when you're out in public where attachments or earthbound spirits tend to lurk, to not find yourself in a situation where you're feeling down and out and you're in a situation where there tend to be a lot of spirits that need to attach, like hospitals, graveyards, public places, cities, just places where there are a lot of attachments or earthbound spirits in the first place. You want to avoid finding yourself in those places while you're in a low energy state. All right. It's possible even that there are a lot of attachment spirits in somebody's house or in your house, or a lot of earthbounds that are inclined to attach. And the best way that you can prevent those is to do a clearing and to clear those spirits out of there, and do a space clearing, which is a topic for another episode. To do a space clearing and get those spirits out of there. That's a way to avoid attachments. Basically, you want to find yourself in situations where you're happier, in high energy states more often, and not in situations where there's going to be spirits and you're in low energy at the exact same time. That's how you avoid attachments. Not finding yourself in a low energy state at a time when you're present with a spirit who wants to attach. That's the best way. And the way that you avoid that is by continuing to do what you can to raise your energy, to raise your vibration, to heal yourself so that you're not in these states of low energy, and continuing to do what you can to clear spirits out, to cross over spirits that you do encounter, and to basically not find yourself in the perfect storm of situations. I know this is hard and it's easier said than done, but trust me, it does get easier. And the further you get along in a spiritual path and the further you get along in healing, the fewer and fewer instances you have where you will encounter attachment spirits. And I think the best way to avoid them is just to kind of continue on knowing that you now have the tools to deal with it if you do encounter them, and know that no spirit has control over your body more than you do, and that's pretty much it. So just the way that you avoid attachments is to keep healing, keep on healing, and to do daily aura cleanses and aura sealings if that's what you need to do. Do whatever it is you need to protect your energy from a spirit attachment and keep your energy high, and that's the best way. Now, this isn't to say that even if you do all those things right, that you'll never have an attachment ever again. That's not true, because there's always going to be a time when we find ourselves deep lows, even when energy is high. And when we're in those places, spirits can attach. But now you know how to deal with it so that you have the tools to handle it should that situation arise. So that's it for the material that I wanted to cover today. And I know that we went through a lot of things, and we talked about attachment spirits and how they attach, the levels of attachment, how many attachment spirits somebody can have, the signs of attachment, what kind of damage they can do, and the step-by-step moving them. So that concludes everything that I wanted to cover for our topic today. So thank you guys for attending. And if you guys have questions, then we can answer those questions now. So let's get started with questions. The question is, your mic is on. You're ready to go.
Awesome. I was just wondering if you do this in person or can you do it long distance healing?
Good question. Good question. So I do this, my healings are almost exclusively long distance. And when we talked about setting the healing stage, what I did was, instead of setting the healing stage where you say that that person has to be physically standing in front of you, I just said that their spirit has to be in front of you. So whether that means that they're physically in front of you and their spirit's in front of you, or you call their spirit in and then you do the healing on their spirit that way, then that just depends on how you do it. So it can be done at a distance or it can be done in person. I think she dropped off the call. So I'm going to take our next question. Okay. So if she comes back, then we'll go back to her. All right. Okay, so what is your question? Your mic is on.
Hi.
Okay.
I'm wondering if you can expand upon when there's a group of individuals that are really angry with a person. They're really upset at that person, how that are there like negative energy darts that can also cause the person they're projecting their anger and resentment towards? Can that cause psychic attacks or spiritual attachments to the person they're angry with?
Yes. So if there's like a group of spirits that are angry at somebody, then usually what you want to do, and in this situation, so I will tell you a brief story, is that one of the first attachment situations I ever had to deal with was a girl that had committed suicide. And she committed suicide in front of her academic advisor's office. And this was like 20-some years ago, and she had set herself up so that she was going to haunt him and be attached to him forever. But she was attached to somebody else. Like, she was, like, attached to him, but, like, somehow it was, like, to somebody else. But anyway, the situation is like, there can be spirits that are very angry with somebody else, and they can either be attached to the person you're working on or attached to somebody else. But what the situation is yes, of course, they can be psychically attacking, like, whoever it is they're angry with, and they absolutely are. But your role here is to almost neutralize their anger and to kind of talk to them about what they're angry about and talk to them about why they're angry. What was that?
Well, I was just saying I see, but my question was about, like, if you have family members pissed at you, you know, of something that you may have done, like, so living people upset at another living person.
Oh, okay. So this isn't about attachment spirits. This is like about living people upset with another living person.
Yeah, I have, me personally, I'll just be honest and share, I have members of my family right now that have been upset with me about my lifestyle and me, like, seeking, you know, spiritual enlightenment, because I used to work in the corporate world, and it's a long story, but, you know, I'm making a transition, and my family's very conventional and traditional, and I haven't worked a full-time job in quite some time, and it has really, really upset some siblings and their spouses, and they're just really, really upset. So, and I've had a lot of weird paranormal activity that has happened since then. And they're like, and I'm over here skipping. I'm a very happy, optimistic person. I mean, I'm no fool, but I choose to see life through, you know, rose-colored lenses sometimes.
Right.
And that really irritates the hell out of them. And a lot of strange things have been happening. I mean, I have stuff that's been caught on camera with, you know, I've seen spirits on film, like literally like real physical entities, you know. And that was like my proof that something was happening. I've had pains like in my kidneys and whatnot. So I just started to lightly do some research, and this call came right on time, you know, and I'm just like,
All right, I totally get what you're saying now. So what you're talking about, yes, those people are psychically attacking you. Last month, I taught a class called Understanding Psychic Attack, where I talked about a lot of stuff and, like, how to deal with it and what to do during, like, for that. And that class is available that you can get as, like, a replay on the website. But basically what you're experiencing, like, yes, those people are psychically attacking you. And yes, it's very possible that the pains that you're experiencing are because of being psychic attacked. But it's also really possible that, like, so you're going through all this transition phase where you're kind of separating from, and not separating, but like you're standing up to like a bunch of people who are angry at your lifestyle and upset with what you're doing and what's going on. So you're kind of coming in at this interface where there's like this rough energy, and you're then being, if you think about it in this way, where like you're in this interface where there's like this rough energy between like you and other people. It's almost like there's like this energetic spiritual warfare going on. Now, in that space where there's a lot of intense energy and a lot of intensity energetically being shared between you and these other people, darker spirits feed on that, if that makes sense. So darker spirits and lower energy spirits, earthbound spirits, that's where they can get energy from, right? So like in the beginning of the call, I talked about how earthbound spirits can get energy from residual human energy. So if there's a lot of energetic intensity happening, especially low energy intensity, and what I mean by that is like people are angry at you, right? So there's like a lot of anger energy coming at you, and there's a lot of intensity about it. Then what can happen is that can attract spirits who are angry and other earthbound spirits who are noticing that there's a lot of this angry energy going on, and are like basically can use that to kind of like get their own energy and gain energy from that, and to create manifestations in your environment, things that you could actually catch on camera and film and whatever, things that they could do. Like the stronger that energy is, the more powerful it is for them to be able to use if they want to use it. Now, the way that you can like neutralize the energy between you and those other people, and the way that I like to do this is you can do like a visualization where you visualize the other people who are angry, and you visualize this like angry energy that's between you and them, and then kind of create like pull that energy away, or use like your spirit guides to help you pull that energy away, and then replace it with like this pink, compassionate light energy. Okay, and that can kind of help neutralize the energy there and make it so it's not like a breeding ground for spirits who want to use energy. Okay. But if you want like more advice on the psychic attack stuff, I think that webinar was like over an hour and a half long. So, and it's available, so you can just go check that out.
I definitely will.
All right, thank you. All right, we have more questions. So I'm going to go to the next one. All right, so your mic is on.
Yep. Okay, so my question is, can one raise one's vibration through healing and self-work, and even with the necessary protection measures? Can that make it uncomfortable for most recent attachments to kind of detach, so to speak?
It depends. That's a good question, and it kind of depends on the attachment and what their state is, and like who they are, and like what their energy is. Because some attachments can continue to hang on and can continue to kind of like, as you continue to rise up. The way I'm seeing this and the way I'm being shown this is like some can continue to hang on and drag on. It kind of depends on how low they are compared to how high you are, and at what stage in development, if that makes sense. So how low they are and how high you are. So like lower ones can separate as you get higher and higher. But ones that are like less, not as low energy, I'm going to say like not as evil, but that's the best way to describe it. Ones that are like less evil can stick around for like continued periods of time, and like they can kind of continue to hang on for like a period of time. I don't know personally if you can get like super high, like so high that it's not possible to get any attachments ever, because they're still like connected to your energy on your body in some way, where you like would need to address that whole, like particularly like that specific thing, you would need to address it in order for like certain attachments to attach. Like that, I could see that as being like a necessary thing. Like, yes, some will detach, but then there's going to be some that hang on, and you need to like call your attention to that specific thing and heal it before they do detach.
And earlier in the lecture, you also mentioned with setting the stage on imagining like the suit with the cords attached and removing that suit.
Mm-hmm.
Wouldn't there be some cords you don't? Well, I'm not saying as an attachment cord, but like because we create cords to everyone around us, friends, relatives, and so on. Wouldn't we not want to get rid of some of those cords?
Yeah. So the cord suit technique only handles cords that are like superficial, scattered type cords, one that's have like recently attached and are like kind of recent attachments that are dragging on your energy, if you will. The deeper cords to like friends, family, like serious life issues that like you haven't resolved for 15 years, that cord suit doesn't remove those cords. It only removes like the recent cords that are like causing like an interference with like your outer energy layer at this time. Does that make sense?
Yeah. All right. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Okay. Next question. Okay, so you are on.
Okay, real quick, because I know we're running behind. You had said that it's possible that an entire family can become an attachment. Did I hear that right?
Yes.
Okay,
yes,
now
you did.
If that's an issue, when you go to communicate with them, can you communicate with them as a whole, or do you still have to do individual?
I like to choose one spirit to speak on their behalf, if you will. So let's say you have like a dad and 2 kids or something. I like to choose like the dad. Like to choose like one representative to speak on their behalf. If it's possible that the other ones have something to say, then you can say like, okay, then they'll either speak up or like butt in, butt into the conversation. But in most cases, like it's just one spirit that has something to say, and then you can ask for that spirit to speak on behalf of the whole group, if you will.
And then you would just have them all go to the staircase at one time.
All together go to the staircase. Usually when they're attached as the group, it's a family. Like it's a family unit.
Right.
That's the only case I've ever seen when they've attached as a group. It's like that they're like as a family unit. So then you would have them like as a family unit all go at the same time.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we have one more.
Yeah. Hi.
Hi.
So I have a question for you. I have a tendency to get attacked over and over and over again, and I didn't know that much about a lot of this for the longest time. It sort of came on to me because of the attacks. I think it like forced me to like really learn what's actually happening out there, and maybe some of the gifts that I had and didn't realize that I had and stuff. But I wanted to know is it just that I have big holes that's making it possible for people to come in, or is it just that I'm in some weird state of change that's like causing it, or is it just my vibration isn't high enough? I don't know if there's like different things that maybe like you might understand or know, or like steps that I guess I can take to like figure that out.
Yeah, so I get what you're saying. So continual attachments is a thing, and the reason why somebody gets continual attachments tends to be like a really personal issue. So it tends to be something that's like very personal and depends on the person and their specific life path, if that makes sense. So usually when somebody's getting the most common reasons why somebody gets continual attachments, and those are like, let's say, for example, I say the number one reason of continual attachments is because that person, you, for example, have a life path in which you need to like to the awaken to this world, awaken to the fact that you have abilities and that you can communicate with spirits and that you can deal with them. Okay? So that's like the absolute, like most common reason, number one thing why somebody keeps getting a continual attachment is not because there's something wrong with them. It's not because like you're a magnet for like bad things happening, or that your energy is low, or that things like, I don't know, you have like these gaping holes in your energy and you're like sickly and having bad things happening to you. The biggest, like, not one reason why this happens is because you're being called to do this as a path. like being called to like be a healer or a medium or somebody that communicates with spirits, or somebody that handles this in a professional way. Like being called to do this in a way that is like would be your job, would be like your career after this, would be a new life path for you. That is the number one reason why continual attachments occur, is because you keep, like, attachment spirits keep coming in to push you to learn more about this, to push you to learn how to deal with it, and to then push you to be able to help others who have this problem or any problem with darker spirits. It's to show you that this world is real, to show you that these spirits can cause problems, real legitimate problems. Because Nerva, I will tell you, I get like emails like at least one a week of people who are saying, whose people tell me that everyone thinks they're crazy and that they have attachment spirits who are controlling their keyboard, who are making it so they can't make credit card purchases of spiritual things online, who are like basically controlling their life. And anyone will if they went and told anyone else that, then anyone else would be like, you're insane. But these things happen to people. Like, these are real problems that people have, and everyone else is telling you that you're crazy. And one of the big reasons basically this is happening to you and you're being called to learn about it, then there's a reason for that. And it's usually because your role is to then help people understand that they're not crazy and get control of their lives and be able to deal with it and know that this is a problem, and to show you that this world is real, that these things are real, that the spiritual world causes actual physical problems in people's lives. Because that's a big misconception about this world, is people think that this whole thing is fun and games, and that shamanism is just for when you're dying, or the spirit world is just like this escape from reality and this fun farce and games that people play, when it's not. And that the spirit world and energetic world causes like actual harm and actual damage in people's lives. And if this keeps happening to you, my perception and my awareness of this, and my, I guess, recommendation and knowledge of this is like the biggest reason that this keeps happening is because you're being called to step into the path and step into some role where you then use your experiences to help others understand that they're not crazy and that this is real, and that this is happening to you for a reason. I know this might not be pleasant for you to hear, and you might not be wanting to hear, like, I have to leave my life to become a spirit worker or something, or, become a medium or become a shaman or whatever. But that's, like, I got to be honest with you, like, the biggest reason that continual attachments happen is because the person they're happening them to is having a spiritual awakening, and their spirit guides and their soul is screaming at them and saying, this is real, you need to wake up and you need to deal with this.
Yeah, it's funny. Got it. That was really important for me to hear. Thank you. I feel like I had a formed question when I asked you, and it all came out like a scream, because it felt like it, I don't know. It just felt like I really had to be here and I really had to ask that question, I guess. I don't know.
That's good. There are other people who are not here who sent questions beforehand that are having the same problem you're having. So when they listen to this, they'll get help from this too.
Cool. Good.
Okay. So thank you. Okay, so there are no more questions. I'm not seeing any more questions. That is it for our class, guys. Thank you so much. You now know everything that I know, well, most of what I know, that I was able to cover in the time that I was able to cover it. So go back through and listen to this class. I highly encourage you to. That's it for our class. Thank you guys for joining me, and I will see you guys again later. Have a good night.